My name is William Justice. Today we're gonna be a bit silly. It's time to have some fun. I know that DaVinci Resolve is a great tool for color grading. I understand all the controls, I kind of have an idea of how they work, but honestly, I'm really bad at it. And I just don't have a lot of experience. And it's one of these things you have to get around and play with. And that was what I was gonna be doing in this video, with some experimentations tutorials on color grading to help myself learn. And then I got this other idea in my head. I kept thinking, when did I first learn how to use color? Why not go back to my coloring book days? I was a master at staying in the lines. The sky could be red, it didn't matter. Anything was possible. So coloring books are a great way to experiment with color. Got me thinking, how could we use this in a video? Well, I think I came up with an idea, at least something to try. I'm not the most artistic person, so I figured having some lines would be a great place to start. Maybe we can use this to create an interesting effect. All right, this effect could be interesting, and hopefully it'll get your creative juices flowing. Now that we know how to create a blank coloring book page, let's create one without me in it, because I want to be able to colorize the whole background. Let me get out of the way. All right, it's time to put the crayon to paper. We're going to do some experiments and try out some animations, and then I'm going to take you behind the scenes and show you how I did everything from creating these to doing the draw over effect, and how you overlay it on top of an image to create an interesting transition from a sketch to a real photo or video. Okay, that looks pretty good. Not too bad of a start. So let's try this with some real photos and videos. We're going to start with a sketch, do the color on effect, and then have it transition or blend back into the real photo and video and pick up from there. If you like my videos and are looking to learn more about DaVinci Resolve, or maybe you're just looking for a bit of inspiration, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and follow me on YouTube. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. I'd be glad to hear from you, and I'll get right back to you. All right, let's jump into DaVinci Resolve here, and I'll show you kind of how I set this up. Really, there's an unlimited number of possibilities here. There's tons and tons of different ways to set up this type of an effect. Obviously, I did some with a coloring book page. I did some where I took some video, a couple different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 different ways that I did this. One, the manual way, where I took the page, colored it, and then blended it together. We're going to do this one right here, and I'm going to do this one in the editor, right here in the editor timeline, so I can kind of show you how to create the effect here. And this last one, we're going to do the same thing, go into a little bit more detail, and we're going to jump into Fusion, and I'll show you how you do it in Fusion. It kind of all of this plays together throughout each of these, using a lot of the same stuff. It's just a little bit different way to set it up. Okay, so let's start with this one right here. This is the one that I did manually, where I started with a picture of my office, had a coloring book page right here, and blended from the drawing of the coloring book page into the picture of my office. Once you have this picture, this is going to be the final spot. We're going to duplicate this by hitting Alt, and we're going to drag it up and put it down here. In the sequence here, we have the picture of my office, the colored page, and then back to the picture of my office. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into some lines for the sketch. So to do that, we're going to go into the effects area at the top, click Effects Library, and we'll get rid of that. And we're going to search for, with the OpenFX selected, we're going to search for Edge Detect. And we're going to take the Edge Detect and drop it right on there. And you can already see we starting to have some edges there. The next thing we're going to do is add an invert. So up here, search for invert, an invert color, and we're going to drop that in. And then we got our dark on light. So let's go in and adjust some of the settings on the effect. So in the inspector, hit OpenFX. We're going to change the color mode to grayscale. And there we go. We pretty much have a black and white picture there. You can adjust the threshold to see what lines are going to pick up and smooth it out. I took this picture right here. I hit P to go to full screen, and I did a Alt print screen, and I printed that out. Then I took the print out and just did a coloring job. I don't have the best coloring skills, but I was just kind of wanting to come up with something pretty quick to see how it worked. And then we got that. So we're just going to transition from one picture to the other. Now, one of the things we needed to do here is, you'll notice when we transition from the black and white one to that one, see where I had the have it adjusted, the zoom and the position. Let me reset this picture here. And that's what I did. So I basically laid this on my floor and took a picture of it. So it doesn't really match up with that one. It kind of jumps. So what we need to do is we need to get it to line up. And to do that, you drag it up, you kind of overlay it on top of the sketch and change the opacity. So we're going to click it, and we're going to drop the opacity down. And you can see where the pictures overlay. So all you do is you just adjust the size and position to get them to match. Be a little difficult to get it quite right. I think I had to adjust the angle a little bit because my angle was off. So we'll put the opacity back to 100, and we're going to take the clip and drop it back down in the spot. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. So here's our 3 clips, and we just need to do a little transition between each of them. So go to the effects library. What I did was I hit effects library and then did video transitions, and this is where they all are here. Now at the bottom, there's some new ones down here called fusion transitions. And what we're going to use is the noise dissolve for these. So we're going to take the noise dissolve and put it right there. And you can see that's what it does. There's a bunch of settings for that. So right in front of this, we're going to start out with a white screen, and we're going to have the drawing come in. So we're going to go to generators in the effects library, take solid color and put that down. We're going to put that right in front of our first clip, and let's set it to white. And go back to video transitions and take the noise dissolve, and we're going to drop it right on the front of that one. And you can see the kind of it comes from the white, and the picture comes in. Now, the noise dissolve in this fusion transition is actually built in Fusion, and this is something I may go into in a later video. You can actually right-click on it, open in the Fusion page, and it'll show you exactly how the effect is being done. You can actually create it, modify it, make your own, and create your own transitions that way. But what we're going to do is there's a bunch of different settings over here in the inspector where you can get the picture to draw in. You can change it. So this number 4 one seemed to work pretty good. It kind of comes out like that. We're going to slow it down a little bit. We'll take that transition and drag it out, and we'll drag this one out. And there's a few other settings we can do. We can soften up the edges a little bit and adjust some of the animation right there. So this is kind of what we have right now. It draws in, comes in with the color. Let's do the same thing with the color. We'll click on this second transition here, and we'll go to the number 4. And let's see, we'll take that border off, and it'll kind of have a paint in effect, just like that. And we can do the same thing on the very end. We'll take the noise dissolve and put it right on that clip. And we'll choose number 4 over the inspector, and here's kind of what we have. So the color clip worked pretty good. You can get as creative as you want. You can design anything, put all kinds of crazy stuff in there and blend it into a regular picture or background and have an interesting effect. Now, what if you don't want to do all the coloring? What if you want to just take a video and kind of have a similar effect going from the line drawing to something that's looks like it's kind of a color effecty thing into the real video? So that's what we're going to do with this one. We're going to do this one in the timeline. So the first step is we need to break this up into sections for each of the pieces. So go to the beginning of the clip, hit shift right arrow 2 times. That's going to go over 2 seconds, and we'll hit a break, and we'll do it one more time. Over 2 more, I hit shift to the right arrow, and we're going to put a cut right there. So we have 3 pieces. The first piece is going to be the sketch. Then this is going to be kind of the colorized thing. And the last one is going to be the real video. In the beginning, we're going to make it white. So we're going to steal this little piece over here that we already made for the white background here. We're going to hit Alt and hold the mouse down and go up, and that's going to duplicate that piece. And we have it all right there. So this is the sequence that we're going to use. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, we have our 3 pieces here, and we're going to add the effects in. So let's start with the sketch. So the first thing we want to do is go to the effects library, click search. With OpenFX selected, we're going to search for abstraction, and we're going to drop that on there. This is going to help us remove some of the lines so that when we add the edge detect on there, it's not going to be too detailed. This one we can play around with it quite a bit. We'll do the pre-blur. See, that would be way too many lines, so we're going to bring it up a bit. Okay, that's probably good enough to go with. And this is something you can just play around with it. And actually each image is a little bit different. So you just gotta kind of have to find what works. So now we're gonna search for edge detect. And we're gonna drop edge detect onto the first clip. And we're gonna add the invert. Okay, I think we want a few more lines on here. Let's adjust this a little bit. That's not too bad. Then this is going to be our kind of the colorized version. And we're gonna just use the same abstraction function on this one. So we have the white to the sketch. This is gonna be abstract one, and then this will be the full video. So we'll go to our effects and we'll search for abstraction. Okay, we'll take abstraction and put it on this clip right there. We'll select it and go to the inspector. And this is where we can adjust it, kind of giving a more stylized look, a little kind of a painted look a little bit. I experimented with watercolor. It looked really good, but unfortunately it must be really CPU intensive because it was just running way too slow, and I actually had some crash issues and things like that. We're gonna do what we did before. We're just gonna add in some transitions. So we'll cancel out of the search, hit video transitions, and we're gonna use the same ones. Let's go, we'll do this noise dissolve, and we'll put that right there. We'll put it on each of these clips, and let's see what we'll let, yeah, it's looking pretty good. And then the last one, I think a cross dissolve tends to work a little bit better for the going from the painted kind of a look to the main video. So let's see what we got. All right, now this one we probably want to adjust the timing, so we can kind of bring this in a little bit. And I'm going to stretch these out to where the transition is pretty much the full time, so it'll make it pretty seamless as it's going between them. Okay, so here's what we have now. Just like that. And you can take these, like we did before, and play around with some of the transition settings. Like this noise dissolve, the number 4 on this noise dissolve tends to go from the middle out, which is kind of an interesting look. So we'll do that on those two. And here's the final look. So you can use any of these transitions you want, create some interesting effects, change up the settings. There's a lot that you can play around with, including adjusting what the lines look like, pretty much everything. Okay, now, so here's where we're gonna get into Fusion and do something similar. And Fusion tends to have there's gonna be more you can do, kind of customize a little bit more. Okay, so now we're gonna take this video and we're gonna do the same thing that we did before, except we're gonna do this in Fusion. And it's gonna give us a little more flexibility. We're gonna be able to overlay these things a little bit better and adjust the timing and do some things like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna right click on it and say new Fusion clip, and let's get into Fusion. So we're gonna start with a background, take the background node and drag that in, and we'll connect the background to the media out. So as before, we had kind of 3 different clips we were working with, or 3 different segments. So we're gonna use a dissolve node for each of those. We'll set our background color to white, and with background selected, we're gonna hit Control Space and search for dissolve and add that in. Now we're gonna take the media in one and connect it up to the dissolve node. And what the dissolve node does is it lets you mix between 2 different images or 2 different videos. So we have, you see this on the spectrum, we have the background and foreground. So let me open this up. So essentially what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be adjusting the background and foreground to do our transitions. Let's do exactly what we did before. Here's our media in one, and we're gonna create our lines right here. So we're gonna use the same abstraction, so Alt Space. The same effect is available inside of Fusion, and we're gonna add that. And we're gonna adjust the settings to try to get rid of some of that detail. That probably ought to be good enough. And I'm just gonna go real quick on this. You can do really whatever you want. So after abstraction, we're gonna add in the edge detect. So hit, with abstraction selected, hit Control and Space and search for edge detect and add that in. And there we have our lines. We're gonna, in the inspector, we're gonna set it to grayscale. And then we just need to invert it. Invert color. So there we have our sketch. So that's step 1. And we're gonna use the dissolve to transition between white and the sketch. And actually the dissolve is gonna have a fast noise in there, which is gonna give it the interesting effect. So the next thing we need to do is we're gonna need another dissolve node for the next step, for just the plain colorized version. So we're with the dissolve node selected, We hit Control Spacebar and search for dissolve. So we can take the same abstraction effect and drag it into this dissolve. And there's our kind of a painted look there. We need one more dissolve for transitioning from the painted look to the full video. So with dissolve 2 selected, hit Control Space, search for dissolve. We'll add that. And on this one, we're going to just take the media in one and go directly into the dissolve. So what we're transitioning from is the white background. Click the second dissolve to the sketch, to the painted look, to the full picture. So let's just set up a little bit of timing here. Okay, so we're going to go to the first dissolve here. We're going to select it and hit 2 so that we can see it up in the viewer. And this is going to transition between the white and the sketch. So let's go to the first frame, and we're going to slide this in the inspector all the way over to background, and we're going to set a keyframe. So we're going to start with white, and let's see, we'll go over about 60 frames and transition to the foreground. So now we have it transitioning from white to the colored picture. Let's go to the next dissolve, and we're going to overlay these a bit, which is kind of nice for the timing that we can do here. So let's go to like frame 45. We'll set a keyframe, and let's hit dissolve 2 down here and hit 2 in the viewer so we can see it. So we're going to be doing this transition right here between the painted picture and the lines. So we're on same frame 45. Okay, we're going to go over about 60 more frames. So that's going to be about frame 105. And we're going to come in with a colored picture. Then we're going to go back about 10 frames. Let's say go to frame 90, like 95, or let's go frame 90. Like that. We're going to go to dissolve 3, and we're going to set a keyframe there. And let's put dissolve 3 in the viewer. Hit dissolve 3 and hit 2. And we're on frame 90, so we're going to go 60 frames. We'll go to like frame 130, right in there, and we'll dissolve into the main video. So let's see what it looks like right now. So we're going to go from white to the sketch, to the painted version, to the photo. All right. That's the basic setup. Now we just need to add in the effects for the transitions. And we're going to do that with a fast noise. So we'll start with this first dissolve here. So we can take fast noise. It's this second icon on the toolbar here. And we're going to take the output of the fast noise and put it into this dissolve here. On the dissolve, the operation, we're going to use gradient wipe. Okay, so with gradient wipe selected, you'll see that it's using the information from this fast noise to put in different parts of the transition at different times. And this is thing you can play with the dissolve and the fast noise as much as you want. So we'll take the same fast noise and we can put it into dissolve 2. Select dissolve 2, and we're going to set the operation to be gradient wipe. And the last dissolve, we're just going to leave that as it is. So here's what we have with the fast noise in there. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And with the fast noise, if you wanted to have the look where it's coming out from the center, which I kind of like that one, the way to do that is to select fast noise, hit the color option up here, and we're going to select gradient. And we're going to choose radial. And this allows us to set a starting and ending point for a gradient. And we're going to put it, we can drag this little line around here to get the gradient set up. And you can see it's going to go from the center and out like that. Now in the other ones, you can play around with the timing on some of this to speed it up and kind of make it a little smoother by hitting spline. And you can select each of these. And so these are our timing points, and we can actually select all of them, kind of hit them to curve, and we can adjust the timing. So if we wanted to go a little faster, we could take these points and move them in. And this will make the transitions happen a little bit faster. This is something you just need to play with and see what you like. And the fast noise has all kinds of crazy settings you can do. we go to the inspector, you can change the detail on it. You see it gets a little more detail. You can change the size. Like that. So it's kind of an interesting transition. You can use it just for other things too, not even beyond just what this is. Like I said, this is the dissolve, which uses the background foreground to transition between two things. And we set the dissolve to gradient wipe using the fast noise as an input, and it uses the information from the fast noise to do the transition. Thanks for watching. I hope this video gave you some ideas, or at least you had a little bit of fun watching it. Please subscribe and comment below. I would really love to hear from you. Also, be sure to check out some of my other videos on DaVinci Resolve, Fusion, and lots of other fun topics. Thanks again.